Right, so by the end of this video, right, you will know exactly what to look out for, where the specifics you should be moving forward to, which are the area you want to focus on for the next 3 to 5 years, kind of to grow your property value. Right now, I believe in the marketplace, there are 3 big problems. Number 1, you could be confused about, the marketplace because there's so much online, social media, and it's so noisy, right, that it has never been. And number 2, every agent kind of you meet directs you to a new launch, and they kind of don't understand your property plans and needs first, and you kind of become a little bit more skeptical, right? And number 3, because of these 2 things, right, you kind of got stuck and you do not know what to do next. And you, most importantly, is you want to do it, but you don't know how to do it properly. So today, right, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to do 2 simple things. Okay, number 1, I'm going to teach you this tool called Urban Planning Advantage. So it's a tool that I've been using all the time, not only just for ourselves, but also for our clients and homeowners that we have actually advised and consult with. And number 2, this Urban Planning Advantage is going to give you exactly what to look out for. So you kind of avoid falling into the master plan trap, okay, which a lot of people actually fall into. And you can start your property journey right now. Since 2009, we actually have figured this out and been using it a lot. Okay, not only just ourselves, but also hundreds of homeowners out there and investors, okay, that we have consulted with. Alright, so why a property underperforms every single time, right? And sometimes you just wonder, hey, how come my property, when compared to others, the growth, a lot of us, when we buy properties, unfortunately, we also just look at the very surface things like, where's the location, my budget. When I buy where I'm familiar with. Also, some of us, we buy because, it's nearer to our parents, or maybe this is where we grew up in, so we want to buy back into the area that we know. And whatever you're doing is definitely for your family. That's why I want to kind of tell you all that today, I want to share with you all new concepts where we use this to study our property, and this is very important. So this is what I call a hot button decision. Okay, I like to call this a hot button decision. So what is a hot button decision? It kind of guides us along on how we should be looking at property. So if you look at a hot button, right? So if you look at a property journey, okay, a lot of times when we purchase a property, there is always this element that if, let's say today, there is a situation where our property will go up in value. So this is what every one of us, we all hope our property can become. So no matter whether we're buying 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or into the future, 20 years later, this is something that we always want our property to perform. So this is towards the pleasure side. So you kind of like this towards pleasure. Because when your property grows, hey, I feel good. But there's also a situation where the property becomes on the same level. So this is a growth situation, right? And if let's say today your property over the past couple of years, it has been kind of on a straight line, then likely your property is on a very stable mode. The moment when your property is in stable mode, right, it's actually towards what? Stagnancy. Okay, it's towards stagnancy. And of course, the case where a lot of us, we don't want it to be, which is when it goes downwards, means what? Your property value drops. And when your property value drops, of course, none of us we like. Okay, none of us we want that to happen to our property. When that happens, your emotion, your attitude towards your property suddenly towards agree. So if you agree, you can just, respond accordingly. Yeah, so basically when we look at properties, right, there are 4 different areas that we look at. Okay, 4 different areas. The first area that we look at is we call the planning guideline. Okay, planning guideline. So what does the planning guidelines help us? It helps us to have a very good overview of the entire Singapore development. Then the second thing that we will look at, right, is the concept plan. So for the many of you who don't know what is a concept plan, it's a longer kind of projection. All right, so it's a strategic land use approach. And this plan basically guides us where the development is going to be over the next 40 to 50 years. Okay, so it's a very, very long time. So the concept plan actually allowed us to kind of witness the 40 to 50 years plans are going to be. So a lot of this 40, 50 years, we may not even see in our lifetime, but it's part of a bigger picture where the government plans very well. And the only difference is when you look at a concept plan, the land use plan is every 10 years. Okay, they revise every 10 years to kind of look into a microscope to be more specific. And the last one was in 2022. Okay, 2022. And after we look at concept plan, the third thing that you must also have, we call it the master plan, which is something that I believe every one of you are very familiar with. Okay, master plan is generally, they basically translate a very long-term strategies from concept, okay, from concept plan into very detailed planning in specific districts, specific locations. Their plan is always to implement this over the period of 10 to 15 years. You see how we look from a planning guidelines, we go into concept plan, then we go into master plan, and all this takes a lot of time and research to really look into it. Why we study this? Okay, it's because we want to understand where the government's direction is, and that also allows us to implement things for our clients to project a little bit more into the future. Is this a kind of magic crystal ball that is 100%? Okay, if anybody tell you 100%, you better run far away. Okay, it's never 100%, but at least there's a certain blueprint. Okay, there's a certain breadcrumbs that has already been laid, right? And our job, right, is like Hansel and Gretel, right? We basically try to follow the breadcrumbs for you all. Instead of you doing the job, we are the one to help you connect all those dots so that we can provide you a more comprehensive research and analysis on this. So these are the areas that we look into it. And also another aspect that you need to take note of besides this tree plan is that there's one more layer, we call it the growth plan. So this growth plan is what we deep dive, because ultimately as a homeowner or as a home investor, our objective is we also want our property in terms of value to be protected and appreciated over time. So instead of just relying on the 3 broad points, we also go into growth areas, growth plans to determine where our direction is as we do our own investments or even to help our clients. All right, so this is how we get ahead of the curve than anybody else and win in any kind of market, okay, regardless of the certainty and uncertainty that many people will have. So this is how we look into the 4 aspects. This is the 1991 master plan. Okay, the next concept plan after the 1971. So you can see right now, the Jurong Island now, it become one big. So here you can also see Paya Lebar Airbase as well as the Seletar International, all the previous airbase or Seletar, Paya Lebar Airbase, and then there's a few like Sembawang Airbase around. So all this are back in the concept plan in 1991. They already started to have a lot of movements, start developing, start reclaiming land. And you can see from here, the reclaimed land already started. So, of course, this is Tekong and this is Ubin. And during then, there were actually talks that they want to connect to Punggol. So, they want to kind of link this up. That's the plan. Or when you go and read off all the alpha, it's quite interesting how Singapore urban planners work. They really plan very far. Of course, will it materialize? That's why we use our urban planning advantage framework, right? To kind of monitor it at the same time. So the idea was they wanted to have roads and rails to connect it. 1991 until now is how many years already? 30. Have or not? Not yet. But interestingly is the reclaim here. I want to show you here. If you are like us, where we study master plan like crazy, right? What is this color, like orangey color, right? What this color represents? What kind of property type? So in 1991, they actually plan to do residential there because it's this color. So this color is actually residential. So I was like, wow, this one is what? Airport residential. Airport residential. Also, is it possible? Unlikely. But of course, after that, what happened is 2001 master plan becomes smaller. So you can see it's no longer residential, but there's still a certain area that they want to make it as residential. But how are they going to do it? We don't know. So that's how you can see back in 1991 and 2001. Of course, they changed colors so that it's easier to understand. And they made a lot of all this master plan available even online for you all to actually access. How urban planning advantage works, right, is that basically there are 4 areas that we should be looking at. There are basically 4 phases before you decide on the path of property purchase or your investments. Okay, the first thing that we want to take note of is the announcement phase. So announcement phase, right, is where they will basically give you information, or this is what we're going to do. And usually they always get people very excited. Then, but of course, a lot of people get excited, then they just jump into it. It could be that kind of situation, and it happened before. Like for example, Greater Southern Waterfront. I think for the last, when it first came out, everybody is talking about Greater Southern Waterfront. Even properties further away from Greater Southern Waterfront, they also say, hey, this property you buy will be, you can ride on Greater Southern Waterfront. Okay, then the second phase is we also need to monitor whether there are changes. Why changes important? So if you all can remember the popular RTS or so in wrong area side, it did not materialize. So a lot of people went to buy J Gateway during then, extremely overpriced PSF during then. None of the properties around there had that kind of PSF, but they went in with this kind of announcement. But of course, things happen in between which nobody can project. Yeah, so sometimes we have to also monitor the changes. And the last phase, right, is the end phase. The end phase where basically the news has already been announced, and the end phase will continue to the next level of criteria that we have to look into. Okay, so this is important. So the end of the announcement usually is the start of the next phase, and the next phase is, we call it infrastructure. Okay, infrastructure phase. So infrastructure phase also very equally important, because when infrastructure means what, there are things going on the ground. You actually physically see things that is happening. Okay, and you start seeing like people do measurements, you start seeing workers, you start seeing, you know, certain things to do with their underground. First thing I usually in whether it's a new township or whether there's a mega development going on, the utilities will be the first thing that you will see it happening. That means the water, the electrical, sewage, drainage. If you go and ask, or you see signboards, hey, things are going on, hey, that means these are indicators that something could be happening. Okay, and because the water, electricity, sewage, all these are the foundational necessities for any areas when they want to change new things. But of course, nowadays, most areas are already done. Okay, then the second thing that we also want to be a little bit more mindful of is relocation. This is also a very big, what I can telltale sign. So if you have power plants, for example, certain commercial buildings that has been there for ages, but suddenly you got news that they're relocating, or maybe there's a building that is held by a very long time business, and then suddenly they either sell the property away or they are relocating to another location. So these are also telltale signs to tell us that, hey, something major is moving. And the third one, right, transportation. So we're talking about roads, expressway, all this. When you see things going on, you know it's big. And if this one you also don't know, then something is wrong, because you should see on, or even for MRT. So how many of you don't know where Sponsor Use School Line is? How many of you don't know where the stations of Cross Island Line is? So if you don't know, please reach out. I can guide you and show you what is happening a little bit more. Basically, there's like an entire area of space that actually all links. So this also is one of the indicator. Another indicator, right? Of course, visually eyeball, you can see that it's damn big. But one of the other indicator is cost of government land sale. So part of infrastructure, once you can cross over to transformation, which is the third part, right? One of our indicator is government land sales. So we also use government land sales as a huge guideline, drive which direction we should go for in terms of property. So government land sales in Yishun area will be Chincharu. Chincharu is near the Yishun, Safra side. Yeah, so they're going to launch, so it's at the southern side. And towards to Sembawang Airbase area. So that area, I believe there's a huge potential. Of course, that based on just data research. In terms of comfort, in terms of accessibility, in terms of can you see yourself staying there, then there's a different ballgame altogether. So I'm only using Masterplan as the guide to see where we can go. And this is also one of the reasons why North-South Corridor has been built. Again, there's no purpose for Singapore to pump in so many billion dollars just to build an underground highway, right? There must be something going on from the south to the north. So in our private consults, when I share with clients a little bit more in detail, that's where we will uncover a lot more insights of how all these plans out there are actually affecting our property prices, how we as homeowners can use some of all these property breadcrumbs to navigate our way into the property market and achieve it along the way just by following all the breadcrumbs. Right. So of course, besides some of all this, you also have the this area. What is this? If you all don't know now, please go and watch some of my other videos. Right. So this is of course the eastern side, where the Long Island, one of the quite most talk about Long Island creation. All right, so I'm not going to cover this here. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another video that I'm going to share with you exactly what is happening to Long Island. That's one. And I'm going to share with you, even with this transformation, even with the Thompson East Coast line. Why did I sell off a property in the East Coast area before all these things came up? So I will be very transparent to share with you all. I'll be putting out real numbers, putting out real thoughts, and what are the key property life cycle traps homeowners like us generally fall into if you do not study it carefully. Right? So this is very important. In a summary, when they want to do the Long Island, is also to free up the shoreline. Okay, so in summary, because of the melting situations, the sea level, they want to protect the eastern part of the Singapore. And this goes all the way to, Marina. Transformation phase, there's also 3 portions to it. And this is where we will even deep dive into which locations based on timeline, based on effectiveness, how long should we be holding on to that property for, and we donate into certain location. And last but not least, also your exit timeline. So property is never about buying. Buying is just one equation. It's about when you exit. So a lot of homeowners, sometimes they miss out on a higher margin of profits because they overstay in their property. Some of them, they sell the property too fast and resulting in them not maximizing their profits also. So this is why when we start looking into the urban planning advantage, right, is that there's a systematic way for us to guide you through in this process as we move forward. Okay, if you do need some help in terms of a property, you can always scan the QR code, be it whether it's a resale or whether it's a new launch. You want to seek a second opinion on, whether what you are doing is correct or not. You want to understand a bit better on how some of these frameworks can actually help you. Okay, so we have various structures and frameworks that we do to guide our clients in, and even ourselves step by step.